Hey, I'm Abe, and today we're going to be talking about renting versus buying. And I guess the first part of that question is the can I buy a house? So you've reached the point where you might be considering whether you're going to rent or you're going to buy your first house. How do you make that decision, and what are some of the things that you should be aware of? There's a lot to break down here, so it'll be over the course of a few videos. But the first question of can I do it is really an important one. So when you're renting your place, you've got a set of transactions ahead of you. You'll probably have to pay a security deposit on the order of like 1 month's rent right at the very beginning, in addition to your first month's rent up front. If you have pets, you might have to pay a pet deposit and then an additional like pet rent on top of that, depending on where you're at. And then for the period of your lease, your rent is pretty much set. And then at each time you're signing a new lease, they can and likely will increase your rent a little bit. So it's sort of, you're on this scale where it's slowly going up, but your initial down payment or your initial costs are relatively low by comparison. So if you've got a 2-bedroom apartment, let's say just randomly that you're paying $800 a month in rent, you've got a couple utilities to manage on your own. You may want renter's insurance as well, but generally speaking, you're probably looking at somewhere between $1,600 to $2,000 to start renting an apartment, right? If you're already in an apartment, you don't need to worry about this. You're just looking at your rent and you're looking at that rental expense increasing over time. And you're probably thinking maybe there's a cheaper way to do this if I buy a house. So let's look at the buying the house aspect of it. So when you buy a house, you'll need a down payment in addition to closing costs, which is what you're paying the bank essentially to go through the motions of setting up your mortgage and getting you squared away. And then depending on where you're buying, on what the market is like, you may have to pay for home inspections, minor repair work, termites and tenting, and a variety of other things. But we'll get into those sort of much later down the line. Can you buy the house is often dictated by that down payment, since it's going to be the largest portion of the whole amount of expenditure that you're going to be facing. And without getting too deep into it, because the next video will just focus on down payments specifically, typically you'll want to put 20% down on the value of the house, right? So if you have a $100,000 home that you would like to purchase, you need to show up with $20,000 in cash just right off the bat. The banks don't like to just give money away for free, so if you want to borrow a large amount, generally you need to put in something to show that you're invested as well. And just to put a ballpark number on it, inspections, repair work, termite tenting, and closing costs, as a very cheap or low estimate, probably will run you somewhere, let's just say, roughly around $5,000. As you're looking at this, you can see now that the difference in the amount of money that you need to have just sitting there ready to spend or use is an order of magnitude different between renting and buying, where originally you were looking at something like $2,000 to get into an apartment. You may need $25,000 to get into a house. Now, there are a lot of options for setting up mortgages or buying a house where you don't need the full 20% down, and we'll talk about that in the next video. But generally speaking, you are going to need a lot more money down. And why would you want to do this? Well, if you did buy that $100,000 home, you put $20,000 into the loan, you put $5,000 into the overall process of it, you'd wind up with a mortgage or a loan amount of $80,000, which if you were able to secure a 4% interest rate on that loan, then your mortgage payments, just for the loan payment itself, not including your home insurance, not including property taxes or anything else, but your mortgage payment is going to be $381 a month. Comparing that to the $800 a month that you're paying, and I don't know if those are good, analogous comparisons here. Maybe we can, in a further video, we can look into a given market. We'll pick one where houses are somewhere around $100,000, and we'll see what the rental expenses are there. But just as a comparison, now you're looking at, let's say, $500 to $800 for rent, and your mortgage payment is $381 done. So you can see that there is an attraction to wanting to own the house. Also, because depending on the loan that you take out, that number may never change through the course of paying off that loan. Every month, $381, done. But as you move from apartment to apartment, as you sign different leases, your rents will increase as the market increases. So your $800 rent may turn into $850 next year. And then the year after that, maybe it's $900 or $950. Or maybe your area is blowing up because a lot of companies are moving in and there's just a lot of demand. Maybe it's going up $100, $200 a month or a year as you sign your new leases. So there is a reason why people would want to buy a house and to take on that kind of debt. But there's also a lot of reasons why you might want to just stay and rent. And one of them, and maybe one of the larger ones, is this need for a down payment. And then you've also got this idea that, if you're renting, you don't have anything rooting you to the area. If you want to take a job in Brazil, if you want to move to London or San Francisco or New York, nothing is keeping you there, right? Whereas if you bought a house, now you've put down some roots, and it's going to be a much more involved process to move. And when you're looking at jobs, it may not be a great time to sell your house, but if you want to move and take that new job, you have to sell the house right away. And so now you're selling at a loss, and there's all things to consider. But looking at the finances of it right up front, down payments, which we'll get into on Wednesday, are a very important part of it and are often a limiting factor for people. So let's get into it on Wednesday. Hit me up with what questions you have, what thoughts you've had over the years as you've made the decision to rent or to buy, and what drove you towards one direction or another. And on Wednesday, we'll jump into it. So thanks for watching. Hit the subscribe button if you learned something, or if you'd like to learn more about down payments and mortgages and home buying processes. And I will see you all in the next video.